defined by our jobs. And so when I would be at a friend's barbecue or a dinner party, the question would inevitably be asked of me, so, what do you do for a living? For many years, that has not been the simplest question to answer. Sometimes, depending on my mood or the situation, I might leave it a little vague and say, I'm an entrepreneur. I own a small business. To which they say, oh, you're so lucky. You get to work whenever you want to work. You don't have to deal with a jerk boss. Of course, we all know that we will work 18 hours for our slave driver selves than 8 hours for someone else, but, right? Or if I'm feeling a little more sensationalistic, I would say I'm a professional dominatrix. And they would say, and they give me that look that shows the incongruity that a nice, normal person standing before them does illicit things for a living. Because like entrepreneurship, there are a lot of myths and misunderstandings about what it is that I do. So I'm going to take a moment to bust a few of those myths so that you all are on the same page about what it is that I do, so what it is that I've learned will make more sense. When they're finally able to talk again, the next comment is, but you can't be a dominatrix. Don't they have black hair and tattoos and are angry and violent? And obviously, not so much. Ding, right? But really, those are just stereotypes. BDSM is not about anger. It's not about violence. It's not about how you look. It's not even always about sex. It's about psychology. The BDSM that I focus on is power dynamics. Because in this crazy, out-of-control world that we live in, it can be really seductive to create safe space, to give up or take control consciously, consensually. You get to the sensual part after the consent. Right? And with purpose. And so my clients come to me because they want to experience submission. They want to give up control to someone that they trust to take that control and then do something interesting with it. Because I'm a giver. Right? And so, for me, I engage in what is called clothed female, naked male, which is exactly what it sounds like. I don't professionally engage in traditional sex acts. My clients come to me for a psychological release. So while there are activities, flogging, you know, those kind of leather mop-looking things that you always see, right? Flogging, puppy play, where they run around like dogs and bark and wave their little doggy tails. Foot fetish, where they're kissing my shoes sometimes for hours at a time. These activities are actually geared towards an emotional state of submission. It's a mental experience. So basically, I give good mind fuck. All right, so today I want to highlight two of the biggest things that I've learned in this lifestyle profession over the last 14 years that have had the biggest impact on my experience of life outside of the dungeon. And I'm going to focus specifically on being a powerful person. Because as I mentioned, power dynamics are really what my interest is. So, communication. Everybody knows that communication is really important, right? We've gotten that far. But what I like to say is that precise communication, controlled communication, is more powerful communication. So in the dungeon, we get these really concrete examples of how things work. So in the dungeon, which is a play space, it's not always as scary as it sounds, sometimes, but not always. In the dungeon, two people might meet, and person one says, I like bondage. Person two, depending on their skill set, their personal experiences, their personal interests, they might hear, I like bondage. I want to be tied up with a silk tie to the bed. Oh, soft, tender. They might hear, I want to be trussed up in a Japanese rope bondage sex hammock. They might hear, I want you to saran wrap me from head to toe with nothing but a breathing tube. So if you say, I want bondage, and don't know what they're going to hear, you might have a very different experience. So in the dungeon, this becomes really concrete, but it's true in our regular lives. For example, feeling words. Feeling words are where nuance comes in, because I'll tell you what, saying I'm angry is different than saying I'm frustrated, which is different than saying I'm annoyed. And so being more precise in your communication makes that communication more powerful and effective. And I'm an efficiency slut. Give me more in less time. Right? Now, of course, this is assuming that you're communicating. A lot of people have a really hard time communicating, whether because of socialization, gender, religion, personality type. Asking for what you want is not a simple thing for a lot of people. Again, in the dungeon, this can go really haywire, really quickly. I would have a client come to me, and as I mentioned, they're coming to me to give up control to me, right? But I need some information. So I would say, what do you want? What are your interests? What's your goal for this experience? But not wanting to be trying to take control, they can say, whatever makes you happy. That's lovely, but not helpful. Excellent, so I developed a technique. Great. I'm going to take all your money, tie you to a tree, douse you with honey, and let the red ants go. Limits? You have limits you'd like to discuss? There's some boundaries maybe we need to... Great. Because I'll tell you what, when you tell me what you want, you're doing me a favor. Telling me what you want is not a selfish act, unless it's a demand, right? Sharing your interests, sharing your desires is a generous act, because it allows me to say yes and, or no, but, right? So using the right words, being concise in your words, and being proactive equals much more powerful communication, okay? 2, confidence. So power. Power and confidence are really interrelated. But I'll tell you what, we have a lot of stereotypes about power, right? Powerful people are condescending a little bit, right? Powerful people have a tendency to be a little arrogant, perhaps a little rude, a little, right? When I was a waitress, I was treated worse with this than I ever have been in the industry I am now, okay? So when I became 22, or when I was 22, I became a dominatrix. I thought I was a pretty hot chick. I suddenly had people paying me to tell me I was a really hot chick. I developed what is affectionately known as domitis, which is where you start to drink your own Kool-Aid, believe your own propaganda, and believe that all should bow before your glory. Totally obnoxious. A friend of mine asked me the other day if I remembered how we met, and I said no. And she said, you know, another friend introduced us, and my now friend said, oh, it's such a pleasure to meet you. And I looked at her and I said, I know, isn't it though? I'm delightful. Fucking obnoxious. Thankfully, I grew out of it really quickly, and she stuck it out, and we're very good friends. But here's the thing. I was basing what a powerful presentation was based on a lot of stereotypes that I had seen on what power is. And it's simply not true. It actually decreased my power with her and with me, right? So arrogance is not confidence. But how do you develop real confidence? That's, of course, in many ways, the ultimate life question. Because confidence is where power comes from. Once again, the kinky world comes to our rescue with a really concrete tool, role play. So role play is not just for kinky cowboys and naughty nurses, although I do recommend throwing on a little cowgirl hat every now and again. It is also about characteristics. You can role play characteristics, not just characters. So I was teaching at a weekend event, and I do a whole class on role play, a 2-hour class, and I do talk a lot about costumes and sexy fun stuff, but I was really emphasizing this idea that you can role play aspects of your authentic self that are then amplified, right? So it's not about faking it. I'm not going to fake confidence. I'm going to find the confidence that is in me, and I'm going to amplify it. And I'm going to role play the person that I believe a confident person is. And with enough of that, you become that. And it really starts to integrate into yourself. Again, this is not about being fake, right? Because that's kind of where my lovely little domitis came from. That was fake confidence. When I started to center in and really believe, so I met this, I lost my train. So Friday, I'm teaching this class on role play. Saturday morning, the next morning, this woman comes up to me and she's so excited. And she said, oh my God, this morning I was asked to fill in for a class I've never taught before. I was so scared. And then I decided to role play you. In 14 years, that's still one of the nicest compliments. Because I said, oh my God, I role play me too. We are not always the confident, dynamic person that we wish we could be, right? Sometimes, again, it's about finding it within you and putting it on. Her class was a wild success. To this day, that makes me kind of a little warm and fuzzy, because this idea that you can find an aspect of yourself and really amplify it to create authentic confidence, as opposed to assuming arrogant power, is the kind of nuance that makes a huge difference in how you interact with people and how they perceive you. And that's a really big deal. Because it's not so much, to be in my industry, to be honest, you can't really care what too many people think of you, because there's a lot of challenges in talking about what I talk about, and I'm pretty shameless in talking about it, right? But what I do care is about my efficiency for communication. And so I want to use the right word choice, I want to use the right tone of voice, I want to use an authentic voice that comes from me, which sometimes is a little harder to find, but it's there. And when you add clear communication with proactive communication, you get more powerful communication. When you add powerful communication with honestly centered, confident power, it really changes the way that you perceive yourself, and then therefore people perceive you. You work from the inside out. So those are two of the biggest things that I've learned in this industry. Not the least of which also is that the right pair of shoes can really change your day, but apparently Austin has death traps for sidewalks. So my beloved stilettos got put right back in the bag. But shoes, really, for everyone. But last but not least, there's one last lesson that I think could be used in most any situation. This particular time frame allows me to use it. And that is, always leave them wanting more.